And welcome back to part 6 of Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, where today we'll be breaking through the middle road of the Underpass of Ginza. Something that to do so requires you fighting two bosses. One of them that is a bit of a step up to what you'll be used to and is a bit more difficult and might catch you off guard, and another one that will straight up rip your goddamn throat out if you're not completely prepared. We've got the troll fight and then we've got Matador. Matador being the most infamous boss fight of this game because he is straight up a noob killer. He is designed from the ground up to ensure that you have a firm understanding of the mechanics of the games, otherwise you will never get past him. But off screen, between last part and this part, I grinded to level 18 so I could fuse Ame no Uzume. And along the way, I also did a bit of a demon hunt to get more materials, basically. Now our Pixie evolved to High Pixie, we don't have a base Pixie to fuse off on anything. So I go out of my way to go back here and nab one, and it gave me an opportunity to showcase that with things like kinship, you can get easier negotiations, because Jack Frost was a fairy type and Pixie's a fairy type. So I managed to get them in. But after a hefty amount of grinding and fusing and everything else, I reached a comfortable position with Ame no Uzume to give her all the base nerfs and some healing. And even though the Kazakushi's at the brightest, I decided not to sacrifice because I didn't really have anything worth sacrificing that would add any extra skills right now that I would want. Now, the next bit of advice I would offer is a bit of a do as I say, not as I do. The Magatama that Fornius dropped when you killed it, aka literally the second Magatama in the game, the second from last skill it will teach you is Fog Breath. I completely forgot that Magatama teaches you Fog Breath at this point in the game. That second one there that's like glowing and shaking like maniac. This one. I completely forgot that it teaches you Fog Breath. So I go into Matador later on without it, and I cannot stress enough get Fog Breath, because it will make life so much easier. I'm going to make this fight, I end up making this fight, when we get to it, far harder on myself than it ever needed to be, because I didn't have it. Fog Breath reduces hit and evasion by 2 levels. As I have stressed regularly throughout this, you could, it goes up to 4 levels, or down by 4 levels, with stat buffs and nerfs. Being able to lower hit and evasion rate by 2 whole levels in one go is greatly helpful. I also buy the most expensive Magatama that I had yet to buy from here, so now we've got all the ones from this shop, which through that grind to level 18 got me just enough to get. Which is great because it gives you Heat Wave, which is a group-wide physical attack that isn't random like Berserk. It will just try and hit everyone. So I would heavily recommend trying to get it and replacing Berserk with it, because it's just more consistent.
Is something wrong? Oh, the gatekeeper's not letting you pass through to Ikebukuro, is he? Would you perhaps like me to persuade him to let you through? Then let's make a deal. I'll persuade the gatekeeper to let you carry on with your travels. In return, you have to find something I'm looking for. I want a bill. It's a small portrait painted by humans. It's small yet detailed, and it uses watermarking technology that changes patterns. It had value at one time, I think. I heard that some humans valued it more than their lives. Much as I'd like to find one, I have no clue as to where one might be. Though, I heard they were found in abundance where people were crowded together. A city, perhaps. Very likely. I'm sure you'll come across one in no time. You're a demon, after all. So, with that, I entrust you with finding a bill.
There is a mannequin blocking our path, stopping us from allowing us to go any further into the underpass. And the collector here says he will help us through if we help him. He wants us to get a yen bill. The only one who owns one right now is Loki, back at Nyx's bar. And as you can see, as I mentioned last time, there is a door in the back that is locked that you can't get into. He says he'll let you in if you have 20 million marker, but obviously you're not going to have that money, so we need to find a way to break in. Outside, in the open field, there's actually a third entrance in the top right. If you come here earlier, you won't be able to get any further because there's a bodyguard. There's a troll bodyguard that is currently not there. He's on his break. So we can squeeze right in, get what we need, and then try and squeeze out. But as I mentioned earlier, the first of the 2 bosses we're doing in this video is the troll. And you're also going to notice the extra level against the small fries. And this is also one of the last areas of the game I'll be keeping Hypixie around before I fuse something else off to just bench her. But as I said, I'll never be fusing Hypixie off. I just bench her because of the reward you get at the end of the game if you keep her. And to be fair, if you do fuse off Pixie, you're not out of luck. That demon will still count. Because it's just the demon in its original form has to stick with you the full stretch. But the reason why I usually tend to just avoid it is because it's far easier to keep track of what demon it is. So then later on, when you have like a full stack of demons and suddenly you try to recruit another one, you're not hesitating and going, oh, which one was it? Was the one that originally was Pixie? And when you're having to get rid of a demon to make a slot. But once you clear this place out, this cash cube at the back will be your 1,000 yen bill. There's also 3 mythical chests, or mystical chests, sorry. And if I'm honest, I'm not 100% certain on these mystical chests. There's some in the game that are guaranteed what loot they have in them, but there's a whole bunch of others that are randomized loot when you open them. And I'm not sure if they're all supposed to be random, or if they're all supposed to be scripted to an extent. But there are some instances where I get absolutely nothing from them, and then on other playthroughs, I've gone to that exact same chest, and it's given me like an incense. And an incense will permanently boost one of your stats. So it's basically a free level up. So I honestly don't 100% know. Like, it feels like it is randomized, but there are a couple that have never not been what they are when I open them. Which is what I think. I guess it's just there to keep you guessing, but it does feel like it's a bit all over the place. But it is time for our first boss of this video. The troll bodyguard comes back after you pick up the end bill. And if you're, like, if this is your first run, this guy will catch you off guard even if you've already taken my advice and grinded. He is surprisingly heavy hitting and kind of bulky. So if you can nerf his stats with the Kunda spells, go for it, because it will just give you more of a chance. Especially the evasion and hit rate. If you can lower his hit and evasion, which I know this game says evasion hit, but most other games in Atlas says hit evasion just because it rolls off the tongue easier. So I will continue saying hit evasion instead of evasion hit. But if you can lower the hit evasion of it, you're just going to aim for better times. Because with the way press turns work, you're going to be missing less, it's going to be missing more. Like, it's kind of self-explanatory to an extent. And I get, like, surprisingly lucky with some of my crits. There's a skill later on that's kind of infamous, and it's a Demi-Fiend exclusive. There are some skills that are completely exclusive to Demi-Fiend and Demi-Fiend alone. And some of them are physical, hit really hard, and have bafflingly high crit rates. And I can't wait till when I get them. Like, there's like one, it's like Frey Kugi or something like that. Like, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, because I can't remember how it's even spelled off the top of my head. I just know it starts with like Frey. And it like looks like a beam of light shoots out of your body and it hits it in its physical base. That has a surprisingly high crit rate. There's one that does actually tier 4, because there is actually a 4th tier of magic damage dealing. But you've got the basic, the Zanmas or Zeonga, and then the Dines. But there is a 4th tier as well, where the name usually completely changes. Like, for instance, 4 has a unique skill that is electric based. That will be tier 4, because it's 4, the god of thunder, so of course he does. Later on you can get Ragnarok, which is tier 4 for fire, and things like that. But it's essentially, there is a tier 4 for physical as well. And if you're ever like unsure what tier it is, pay attention to the wording of the description. If it says low is tier 1, middle tier 2, high or heavy tier 3, if it says severe, it's tier 4. If you're playing Shin Megami Tensei 4 or Short 4 Apocalypse, there's also Colossal, which is tier 5.
An actual bill! We had a deal, right? Well, hand it over! Okay then, a deal's a deal. Hold on a sec. Here you go. Give this letter to the gatekeeper. It should get you through. See you later. Hope you get to Ikebukuro safely.
And I do kind of hope at some point SMT4 gets ported to consoles in some form or fashion. Like, who knows if it will, because it made the most of both the screens on the 3DS, so maybe there'll be some complications with it, but I'm still hopeful that maybe we can get SMT4 and 4A on other platforms one day. But if that ever happens, it's kind of jarring, going from SMT3 and how minimalistic the numbers game is, where every time you level up you get 1 point to spend, the cap is 40, there's 4 tiers to skills, and then you go to SMT4, there isn't a cap full stop on any of your stats, so it can go up to, I think it's 999 if you so choose. It's not likely to, like, you'll probably have like around 100 in some stuff and maybe like 400 in magic if you're being smart, but you get 5 points to spend per level up. Like, straight up, you get 5 points per level up, and there's 5 tiers of every magic and physical attacks. And that game also has some amazing skills that I wish was in other stuff other than just SMT4, like Luster Candy. Whoever decided to make Luster Candy a thing is a madman, and I live for it. Luster Candy, if you don't know what I'm talking about, is a skill where it will boost all of your stats by 1 level party-wide. So it's not just you getting physical, magic, defense, and hit and evasion boosted, it's your whole party by 1. If you have several members of your party Luster Candy, you can max out all of your like stats super quick. But the thing that makes SMT4 brutal is that they balance their late game around you having that skill. So there'll be enemies that will just absolutely destroy you if you're not using Luster Candy. But when you enter this area, your menorah will start radiating and the screen will like get a red glow. That is your warning that you are approaching the first other candelabrum wielder, the first other person that has a menorah. Because ultimately, to get the true demon ending, you need to collect all the candelabrums and then bring them into a dungeon we'll be introducing ourselves to a little later on. But the introduction to this gimmick, your very first encounter with another terrifying demon or the menorah, is mandatory. Brace yourself.
But if you have a menorah, it is our destiny to fight. Let us duel to the death within my realm, where none can interrupt us. Escape this domain alive. The victor shall claim the loser's menorah and return in triumph. You hold the menorah. Then, like me, you must be seeking supreme power. That I cannot allow. Only the greatest warrior is worthy of such authority. It is meant for a master swordsman. One who amidst blood and applause has put an end to countless lives. That warrior is I, Matador. I'm sorry to say, but you seem rather weak to be in possession of a menorah. You should hand it to one more deserving, such as I. But since it's unlikely that you'll heed my advice, I challenge you to a duel. We shall determine which of us is truly worthy of the menorah. I swear by my sword and capote that I will once again prove victorious. Now, let the battle begin! Charge me with all your strength. Your horns cannot pierce my soul.
Welcome to one of the most infamous fights in the entire Atlas Megaton universe. The fight against Matador in Shin Megami Tensei 3. Because this dude is a fucking difficulty spike. And a severe one. And if you have not grasped a firm understanding of Kaija spells and Kunda spells, the bus and nurse, you will never win. Not without severely power leveling and getting lucky anyway. And the biggest reason why is what he starts to fight with. He immediately starts to fight with Red Kapate, which will boost his hit and evasion by 4 stages, maxing it out immediately. meaning you'll almost never hit and he will almost never miss. And that alone will make it so your turns end very quickly and his keep on going, because he will keep on hitting you and keep on getting crits for his physical attacks. He will also has magic that is Zan based, so please, for the love of God, equip a Magatama that blocks Force or does something that reduces attack ability, and bring you Uzume. The reason why I stressed to fuse Uzume as much as possible is because she's one of the earliest demons that has a group-wide heal with Media, and she blocks Force, so you can cut away Matador's turns. Additionally, don't use it too often, but you're going to see me use it a bit because I forgot. I was rusty on this fight, and I actually did this on my first attempt, which I'm very grateful for, even though it was a very rough attempt. You'll see what I mean as the fight goes on. But I panic about like near the end of this fight, and if you just didn't do what I did and not panic, I would have had an easier fight. But it's just because I was getting stressed out because I was starting to get overwhelmed. Because even when you know what you're doing, this fight's not easy. So this fight desperately expects you to bring your A game, and if you are not there with it, you will never get past it. Matador will wipe the goddamn floor with you easily. As I missed there. What doesn't help is that this is before I corrected myself and realized that all the stats go up or down by 4 levels and not 3. I mentioned in the very first video of this Let's Play that there's a couple points in the early game where I ended up making life more difficult for myself accidentally because I forgot that it goes up by 4. It goes up by 4 stages and not 3. Because even though it says Matador boosts its hit and evasion by 4 stages, I still continued thinking it only went up by 3 because I assumed, based on how I remember SMT 4 and 4 Apocalypse, it was one of those, even if you nerf it, it's a way of Matador going up, because that's what some enemies do in 4 and 4A. They will have stats where it will boost it by 7 stages, and it's solely there, so if you've nerfed it, not only do they undo all your nerfs, they boost as well. And it's like, once you're used to things like that in 4, going back to 3, where that's not really as much of a thing, you're not expecting it, and sometimes you'll overanalyze things where it's just trying to be kind of simple. But the real brutal thing of this is that every time you reduce its hit and evasion, there's a chance it will use Red Capite again. And the lower your hit and evasion is on it, the more likely it is to respond with it. Which, to be fair, will cause it to waste a turn, but it also means you're having to put more work in to lower it. Additionally, if you lower its stats beyond its base minimum, like beyond the 0 point, for lack of a better word, there's a chance it respond with Dakaja and Dakunda. I always get muddled. And remove its nerfs. There it is. But to be fair, using a single nerf on it to make it use Dakunda isn't a bad idea, because you're making it waste a turn. Because as it is a boss enemy, it does get 2 press turns by default, even though it stands here on its own. But as I was saying before, if you're going for the true demon ending or not, this is the only mandatory fiend. You have to fight this son of a bitch whether you like it or not. Every single other fiend, because every single enemy that has a candelabrum is a skeletal dude here, like Matador, that will and they are classed as a fiend type enemy. All of them beyond this are optional. I will be doing all of them anyway, because I'm going for the true demon ending, so I have to put myself through more torture, but this is where the panic sets in. From this point onwards, when I was playing, I'll be completely honest, I was panicking slightly, and you're going to see me make dumb decisions quite regularly. Starting with, I should have pushed the lower hit and evasion with Demi-Fiend and have had Uzume heal. But I don't do that, I use an item. Just so I can guarantee a free heal. Because in my head, I was thinking in my panic, then maybe I can have Uzume do something else. When no, I should have absolutely had Demi-Fiend lower the hit and evasion and then just had Uzume use Media. And the only reason why I didn't is because I wanted it to be a full heal, because I didn't know if its new attack that it gains halfway through the fight was survivable. This, the Andalusia. It is survivable quite easily too, unless you get very unlucky and it hits the same enemy, same buddy several times, which is unlikely. It's thankfully kind of forgiving in its equality of how much punishment it deals out, but it's still something that will rip your head off if you're not expecting it, and if you're already kind of lowish. But here, I used Media, and I was like, well, I was safe, I can out-heal it. So that was a waste of a bead chain. I was kind of in the headset at this point that if the fight like, if the fight fails, then so be it, the fight fails. Like, I wasn't trying to give my A game at this point onwards, because I was kind of just accepting that I'm probably gonna lose this, because I am panicking. And so I'm making decisions I shouldn't. Like that what I did there, Demi-Fiend, I should have done that last turn. Just to make us give more of a chance. And anytime I do a physical attack, because like right now, the whole party is on low on MP. And what didn't help is I had Shisa use Warcry earlier on, which got Dekunded out, so it was a waste of a skill because that was lowering it by 2 stats, when I should have just done 1 lowering to make it use it to waste a turn. So Shisa could have more NP for later in the fight here. So there's a lot of thoughts like that were going through my head, so I was like, well, if I lose the fight, I know what to do for next time, so I should have a more consistent run. Because you're going to see here that I even use a Soma drop here. I expend. I use a lot of items here that you shouldn't if you can help it. Like, ultimately, there's a lot of ways, especially later on, of getting a lot of these items back easily, so it's not the end of the world. But for this stage in the game where you don't have an easy access to a lot of those skills, they're very dear spendings to let go like that. Like, they're something that you're gonna need later on. But this is like this is where I'm at. This is the point where I'm like, okay, it's getting desperate here. Everyone's low on NP, so I can't heal outside of items. So I've just got to try and push for the attack. And at this point, I just go, you know what? I'm going to go kill or be killed. I'm just going to push on the attack. It's using focus, which does more than double damage. The way it works is it takes the base number of their attack, doubles it, and then adds everything else afterwards. So it becomes so it does something like 2.2 or 2.3 times damage on average. Like, it's like a lot of later games will say 2.5, but on average it's around 2.3 or 2.4. But it doesn't change the fact that's a heavy attack coming your way. So at this point I'm like, you know what, kill or be killed. I'm just going to push all in the attack, and I get very lucky with not 1, not 2, but 3 critical hits in a row and manage to win. If that didn't kill, I guarantee you its next attack would have killed Demi-Fiend, because Demi-Fiend was already on low health. And with the focus doing like the extra damage as well, Demi-Fiend, even if the other demons might have survived, Demi-Fiend wouldn't have. So that was the last straw. If that didn't kill it, it was over. It doesn't have to be that close though. But I think that to an extent at least shows you how dangerous Matador really is. With me going through the game several times, making one simple mistake in my decision making suddenly made the fight a far ton closer than it ever had a right to be. One little slip up and suddenly I was on my last gasp there. The next attack probably would have killed me.
So, those holding menorahs did attract each other. I have a favor to ask of you. There is no hurry, but could you bring your menorah to us? I will allow you access to the Labyrinth of Amala from the terminal. I will explain the details upon your arrival. Until then, please ensure that the menorah remains in your safekeeping.
Something that I can now talk about that's kind of cool though, is that your tattoos reveal your status. You see, as we're nearly dead, they're glowing red. So you can, it has just an attention to detail of that the Mugatama is weaker in you, so you're not as strong. But at this point, your first priority should immediately be backpedaling and getting heals. Go to the Fountain of Life and get fully stocked up. Because if you foolishly decide from this point, oh, there can't be that much of the dungeon left, I've just done the really difficult boss, that's probably the end of it, you're gravely mistaken. We've barely touched the Underpass. The Underpass, is, as I said last part, is one of the first real instances of any kind of endurance test. It's going to begin next time, but until then though, you take care now.